Ladies and gentlemen, please have your seats. We're about to start. A very good morning to you all here in Berlin for the conference Strategies Beyond Borders, which is jointly organized by the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung and the German Academic Exchange Service. My name is Michael Hörig, or you can call me Michael for this conference. I work for DAAD in Bonn as head of division for strategic planning, and I have the honor and the privilege to moderate this first day and guide you through a very long working day. We have a packed agenda. We start late, but we finish late as well. So I hope that everyone brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm to endure during this day. Now, before we start with the opening and welcome addresses, let me do two practical announcements. First of all, the language of this conference is English. So we have a very exciting project here that is translating every lecture you hear simultaneously into written text. So even though you might be very apt and experienced in listening to English lectures, you might also want to read a German or a Spanish written text. So if you would like to do that, you can go to the website you can see on the screen here, and you will find every single lecture that you will hear today also as a written document. So it's very exciting to have this project here, which is developed and implemented by the KIT, the Karlsruhe Institute for Technology in Baden-Württemberg, and that's the first announcement I wanted to make. Second announcement is, you already noticed there's a conference app. If you haven't downloaded the app on your mobile device, you can still do so. How to do this is, you can find information at the stand at the entrance, but also on the conference flyers, you will find the URL and on the QR code on how to access and download the app. That's it from practical announcements. Now, let's get started with the program. And I would like to call on stage Dr. Dorothea Rüland, the Secretary General of the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD. Please.
Lieber Herr Hörig, zunächst mal ganz herzlichen Dank für die Einleitung. A few words in German, you please allow. Lieber Herr Meyer-Guckel, Ihnen ganz herzlichen Dank für die Gastfreundschaft. Es ist immer wieder eine Freude, hier bei Ihnen zu sein. Den Herrn Staatssekretär begrüße ich in Absentia. Ich hoffe, er kommt gleich. Und ganz herzlich möchte ich begrüßen Frau Professor Pellert, die uns nachher gleich die Keynote halten wird. Dear colleagues, dear friends, distinguished guests, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warmest welcome to you, guests from Germany, Europe, and around the globe, on behalf of the German Academic Exchange Service in such a historically significant location. This year, Germany's capital celebrated the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I'm sure you noticed on your way in, this building is directly next to the Brandenburg Gate. A monument which now stands for politics and people that were determined to overcome borders. We will be discussing today how to break down borders of a different kind in the coming days. I'm pleased to be hosting this topical and important conference in cooperation with the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung. Its title, Strategies Beyond Borders, Transforming Higher Education in a Digital Age, is a nod to our surroundings, as just mentioned, but more importantly, places our strategies for the transformation of higher education reaching beyond local, institutional, and national levels within a digital context. Digitalization tends to be used as a kind of buzzword, but it is a driving force for change. I do understand digitalization to be a development affecting all parts of society in education, higher education, technology, and social change, which is why the DAAD aims to be an integral part of this endeavor with its structural expertise and support for higher education projects. Transformation on a global level requires a network of partners, and we are lucky to cooperate closely with similar and allied institutions. Our guests from Fulbright will be arriving at lunch to join us. Last year's conference, Bologna Goes Digital, was also a cooperation with the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, and rather successful in bringing attention to the seemingly overlooked topic. The white paper, Bologna Digital 2020, published in June this year by the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, Kiron Open Higher Education, the DAAD, questioned to what extent digitalization could actually give new impetus to the Bologna process, and thankfully offered some answers too. Those who are interested can find copies in the lobby up there. After today's workshops on various topics, tomorrow we will focus on thinking Europe, looking at digitalization through an EU lens. Education and training systems in Europe are facing different challenges, and digitalization has been identified as core element for addressing those challenges. The hope is that digitalization strategies will improve employability, especially for the younger generation, and thus create open, innovative, and digital learning environments, whilst cultivating fundamental values such as equality, non-discrimination, and active citizenship, supporting educators, ensuring transparency and recognition of skills and qualifications, ensuring sustainable investment as well as high performance and efficiency. The new European Commission, with its newly appointed president, Ursula von der Leyen, began its work on December 1st. Digitalization has been declared a top priority, next to more women and more, please, and sustainability. Digitalization, more women first. More women, digitalization, and sustainability. Digitalization has been declared a top priority. The new Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, Maria Gabriel, combines all important fields related to higher education, which can create new synergies in international higher education collaborations. This year also saw the selection of the first pilot projects of the European universities, initiated by President Emmanuel Macron. I'm happy to share that out of 17 selected university networks, 15 of the participating institutions are from Germany, and quite a number is here today. These European universities are part of a transnational cooperation aiming to establish transdisciplinary knowledge-creating teams of students, teachers, and researchers in order to jointly address big societal challenges. Exchange creates excellence in an academic sense, but I also believe that a backdrop of changing political landscapes, the climate crisis, mass migration, and indeed anti-intellectualism needs specific cooperation across national and sectional borders, and digitalization is just one further tool to reach these aims. For example, the OpenU project, developing online pedagogical resources for European universities, will support the establishment of European universities by creating a shared digital infrastructure and ensuring interconnectivity of existing digital solutions. This hub will foster online collaborative co-creation of knowledge, bringing together students and academics from different countries and disciplines. The project fosters evidence-based policymaking as 6 European ministries of higher education and the Erasmus Student Network are project partners. The DAAD is coordinating the policy cluster, bringing together the national and the European policy level and ensuring an ongoing dialogue. I might be preaching to the choir here, but as an organization, we really do hold the slogan internationalization through digitalization close. The importance of digitalization for internationalization should not be underestimated. Indeed, through digitalization, we can find new approaches to participation in higher education, new forms of transnational cooperation, and in terms of strategy development within the DAAD, digitalization serves as one of the main catalysts in reaching new target groups, offering equal opportunities and diversification of student body. I want to make sure to recommend the Bologna Sub-International Conference on Virtual Exchange, Borderless Mobility between the European higher education area and regions beyond, which is taking place on this coming Wednesday at the Berlin Brandenburg Academy of Science and Humanities to you. How can digitalization create new forms of cooperation and exchange between the European higher education area and non-European higher education areas? We will be examining international best practice examples within Erasmus+, virtual exchange and collaborative online international learning, abbreviation is COIL, such as the approach of Kansai University, Osaka in Japan. This conference is the starting point for one of our new, more exploratory initiatives. As I mentioned, we are convinced that the global challenges of our time can only be solved together. So let me take you through our current priorities. We would like to strengthen our transatlantic partnerships, which is more important than ever, through the use of blended learning teaching cooperations that follow the virtual exchange model. We would like students on both sides of the Atlantic to work together on projects, exchange ideas in the virtual classroom, and be able to use different types of media while doing so. This type of networking and research-oriented teaching addresses both existing cooperation in the context of DAAD program work, as well as individual teachers who do not yet have any experience in this field and wish to engage in digitally supported international exchange between Germany and the US, as well as Canada. We will make sure to give you detailed information on the planned kickoff event at the beginning of 2020. International mobility and cooperation digitalized is our current flagship program. Not only are we providing German universities and their networks of international partners with a modern tool to promote internationalization through digitalization, but EMKD, as we call it, is also crucial to us as an opportunity to learn and advance our current program work. The University in Aachen and the University of Applied Sciences in Bielefeld have been receiving funding to realize activities, and at least from Aachen, it will be presented here today, ranging from collaborative virtual reality teaching and learning scenarios in a virtual mine to the implementation of a new campus management system, including the provision of digital infrastructure to support administration of the student journey internationally. The student journey brings me to another project. We call it My Guide, a needs-oriented companion, which will be made available to our website to international students from the end of December, hopefully paving the way for international students to enter the German university system successfully. The principles of individualization and personalization that are used in more and more digital projects worldwide are also guiding the future development of our own digital services. Personalized and individually tailored information about the study landscape and admission requirement form the core of this service. Of course, the enrollment at a German university is only the beginning, which is why we are motivated to establish a digital campus. The digital campus is a joint project with DAAD, Goethe-Institut, GAST, TU Berlin, University of Aachen, Technische Hochschule Lübeck, and Kiron Open Higher Education. The mission of this national initiative is to combine the individual strengths of the partners in marketing, recruitment, and the qualification of foreign prospective students for the German higher education system, and to develop a digital portal which will provide language and prep courses, innovative teaching and learning opportunities, as well as test procedures, all under one roof or on one platform. You see, we are attempting to connect the different dots. Digitalization isn't an island, it is an interconnected world. Digital change is not just about technology, but organizational and systematic innovation that permeates all areas of higher education and the educational system. Nevertheless, the DAAD also promotes technological innovation and, above all, the networking of digital infrastructures and systems. Isolated solutions must be avoided, cooperation strengthened, and synergies leveraged. And that is how I see the role of DAAD, an association of German institutions of higher education and their student bodies. The DAAD is a partner and moderator, orchestrating the discourse on internationalization through digitalization. Before the conference is after the conference. So let me alert you to the conference Internationalization through Digitalization, which will be taking place from October 5th to 6th, 2020, within the framework of Germany's joint EU Council presidency next year. Many thanks, as always, go always to the Federal Ministry of Education and Research and the Federal Foreign Office. Without their support, our work, and indeed mobility of over 2 million scholars from Germany and abroad would not have been possible. Thank you to all who made this conference possible. First of all, Alexander Knot, sitting over there, and Michael or Michael Hörig today, and other colleagues from DAAD. Ladies and gentlemen, the coming days will be filled with fruitful discussions and academic debate. Please use the opportunities to create personal encounters and conversations. They will lead to enduring contacts and networks driven by the spirit of partnership. I wish us all very exciting days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to call on stage Dr. Volker Meyer-Guckel. He's the Deputy Secretary General of the Stifterverband, here based in this very building, among other places in Germany. Mr. Meyer-Guckel, you have the floor.
Good morning, dear Dorothea Ruiland, dear Ada Pellat, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. On behalf of the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung and the Stifterverband, I would like to welcome you to Berlin. I'm pleased to welcome so many international and national experts on the internationalization and digitalization in higher education. Over the next 2 days, a variety of approaches will be presented on what cooperation across borders can look like and how technological changes will continue to shape our higher education system in the long term. So what are we talking about when we talk about strategies beyond borders? Strategies beyond borders means that universities do not only have to find their own strategies in an age of digital transformation. It also implies that this must be done crossing national, regional, disciplinary, and above all, institutional borders. Or to put it into one phrase, we are moving towards a new paradigm of research and teaching, the paradigm of cooperation. If we want to move on this track, politics must set certain framework conditions in order to promote incentives for cooperation. I believe that public funding of the future should always include cooperation as a key requirement. But the even greater challenge seems to be to bring about change in all of our minds. We need to question our usual ways and strategies for dealing with challenges, knowledge exchange, and innovation processes. More creative methods of problem solving must find their ways into universities, and the openness to learn from others and collaborate with others needs to be at the core of the higher education leadership and future development. Only in this way we can achieve a transformation of higher education that is oriented on the transformational needs of society. When I look at the program for the next 2 days, I'm proud that we have been able to invite many great actors, great examples of good practices that will inspire higher education of the future. What this higher education should look like and what values and trends will shape the international education system of the future is a question of working together and discussing those questions. So I would like to invite you not only to listen to the presentations or to exchange a business card that will never be looked at again. I would like to invite you to talk and think very concretely about the learnings for your own context, for your own institution, and ask for support to implement proven good practices in your own institutions jointly with others. The digital transformation is not the only trend that will shape higher education in the future. There are many other major economic, political, social, and technological trends affecting the future of universities. For example, the questions of sustainability, educational justice and equal opportunities, or the aging societies that must also be taken into account. However, digital skills are probably the most central pillar for effective digital transformation, no matter in what area. For several years now, we at the Stifterverband have been dealing with the question of which competences are needed by learners, teachers, and all members of societies, and which culture is needed in institutions, be them academic institutions or enterprises, to foster these new competences and skills. We believe that future skills are the key for success and sustainability. It seems obvious, but unfortunately still not often the case. One should strengthen these skills first and then implement digital technology and not vice versa. At the same time, future skills are clearly not digital skills at all. Shaping the digital age requires many soft skills that are not technological skills. All actors in higher education must see it at their central as their central task to enable people to deal with uncertainties, to have an innovative mind, and to be able to critically reflect on those new technologies. Technology is not a means by itself. If we want to foster thinking and acting beyond borders, we have to think about new formats of teaching, new formats of doing research. We have to develop a new pedagogy that uses technology for developing those skills and new ways of doing research, in which we use data, artificial intelligence, and openness as new sources of knowledge. With so many innovative minds having come together here, I'm sure that we will find many ways to move into this direction. I wish you a lot of joy in fruitful discussions, much inspiration by learning from others, and a great starts for many impactful corporations of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer-Guckel. Now let's move to the first keynote. And I'm very, very pleased to welcome Professor Ada Pellet from the Fernuniversität in Hagen to deliver the keynote. She has been the rector of the only state-funded distance education university in the German-speaking community since 2016. She's also a respected expert on digitalization. She's a member of the Council of the Federal German Government on digitalization. And I'm very much looking forward to her views and her perspectives on the topic of today. For your information, she will speak for about 25-30 minutes, and then we have about half an hour for question time. So you can already think about a good question to ask. And then when the time has come, you can then call for attention. But before that, we would like to listen to Professor Pellet. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for this nice introduction. It's your task to take off me from electricity, batteries, whatever, after 25 minutes. And I'm looking forward that we can dive into discussion then. I can very much cling to what Volker Meyer-Guckel and Dorothea Rüland have already addressed. And first of all, I wanted to say that I think it's a splendid idea to bring these two communities together, because globalization was the last really big challenge for higher education. DAAD is the expert organization on internationalization, but many of the questions that arose from the societal challenge of globalization to higher education can be seen in parallel to digitalization as well. So I think it reinforces these two major social challenges. And within the institutions, I think we can ease our lives if we combine these communities, because in the end, all have to address a lot of scholars who are not interested in globalization or digitalization at all. So maybe by combining forces, it's easier to pave the way for the transformation of the institutions. And I think, and I got to learn that a lot of you are in the middle of these transformational processes within your institutions. So I think what Volker Meyer-Guckel said, to form these professional communities, how can we do this? To form these networks and this collaboration will help a lot to tackle with this phenomenon of digitalization. What we learned with internationalization, we can apply as institutions a lot to this new, not all, yeah, many things are also different. First of all, I think we have to start with thinking about our mission. Before we dive into digitalization, we should stop, lean back, and talk together. So what is the specific mission of our institution? The answer is slightly different for each institution. Me coming from a university for long distance learning, that's a different answer maybe. We have been used to delivering a study model for people who are not around, yeah, who are somewhere else in this world. And Fernuniversität had to start to think 40 years ago, how can I address students that are not around? Oh, I can use media. That's a way, if I'm independent of time and space, deliver a study program. And then the thinking starts. So, but also we have to think nowadays, so what are our core values? What is what we really, really see as our central mission? In terms of Fernuniversität, it's lifelong learning. And it's pretty much clear that digitalization helps a lot with that mission. But I'm sure every institution can cling its core values to this means of digitalization. I always point out digitalization, and I think you both said it, it's not an end in itself. Of course, it's a kind of tool on the one hand. I come to that's also a big social force. But in the beginning, I would not start a dialogue about technologies. I've observed the scenery for the last 25 years, e-learning coming and going, and all waves of modernization in terms of new technologies. And I can really summarize that experience in one word: don't start with technology. Because in the end, there's this divide between those very near and so the nerds, and very digital ones, and they are keen on trying out things. You need that, but it's so easy to lose the rest in that discussion. So I would very much underline that: start with good, old, still important questions before you try to transform your organization. And that is the starting point, this mission. This is not an easy task, because you have thousands of missions in a university, very individualized, there they are. And so you have somehow to think, and all of you are experts of communication, how to bring these topics on the agenda within your organization. And you have to think, how can we have that as a start of developing a strategy, for instance, for digitalization, but also a strategy for internationalization should start with that point. The second step would then be what of our core values can be reinforced, even improved by digitalization, and which are endangered, where we have to have a look. The German Rectors Conference had a working group some months ago, or last year, I think. What are the specific of a German university? So we tried to find out a kind of mission statement. And when the working group presented the first version of these specifics of the German university, there was the sentence: the German university is an institution of Präsenz, ist eine Präsenzinstitution. I was in this session. I said, hey, hello. So the whole colleagues started to laugh and said, yeah, it's clear the rector of Fernuniversität cannot underline that sentence. And I said, no, it's not only my role as a rector. Isn't that a bit short-sighted nowadays to stress that the physical meeting is the essence of the German university? I don't think so. What is it what we want to express? Is it the German university is a place for personality development? Yes, I think so. That's a very important task of a university. And most of us have the idea that something like personality development can only happen when you are together on a site. I would even start to challenge that, but I would say, okay, then let's put that down. We want to foster personality development. That's very much okay. I would underline that. And then let's think, how can we do that? I also think 19-year-olds should meet on a campus. And I don't see the danger that in 20 years we won't have any campuses in Germany. I even invite a lot of politicians to the campus in Hagen because they start, why do you have a campus? I said, because 2,000 people are working here. Maybe. So I think there are funny ideas, yeah, what can be done on campus, what can be done virtually. So we have a really black and white world and have to think. I also had good experiences more in the US environment where you are very much, how to say, guided in your social competencies via virtual and new technologies. Why not? So take care that you don't see that in either we meet or we have something digital. So I think the world is more differentiated, but it's very good to start as an institution with partial strategies, because digitalization is challenging all the core functions of a university or higher education institution. And so at least we started and said, okay, let's have a look. What does this mean for teaching and learning? So what does this mean for research? And of course, what does this mean for service and management? And it's a big challenge in each of those areas. And I think to get warm, I got the impression it's a bit easier to start with these partial strategies. But of course, in the end, we have to combine them. And I'm also the spokesperson of a so-called digital university in North Rhine-Westphalia. This is nothing else than a campus of a virtual network, a platform of 42 higher education institutions in North Rhine-Westphalia. And it's a kind of self-organized environment, because I think we all got to know that it's much easier. Volker Meyer-Google already said the buzzword of collaboration. If we collaborate, and life can be easier. And so now everybody is feeling these big challenges in all those areas. And so we have to find a way where we can exchange ideas, strategies. And there I learned it's very important to combine these different worlds, because in former times we had e-learning communities, we had e-government communities, we had those on open science. So in the end, at least with a single institution, all these communities have to come together. And the vice rector for teaching has to be able to talk to the head of the computer lab. So, and of course, all are linked together by modern or not so modern administration. So I think bringing these different areas together is a big challenge, because they all talk different languages, have complete different approaches. But digitalization of higher education makes this extremely necessary. Because if we don't link these different discourses together, you never will have an effect on the institution itself. And I think digitalization is an enormous, I mean, we know it all by now, a societal transformative force. It completely changes the way how we inform, how we communicate, how we live. So I think the English has this differentiation between digitalization and digitization. I like that, because digitization is the more modest one, so the IT-based processes in your organization. That's what we are doing all the last years. But digitalization means transformation of the business model. And I think maybe 5 years ago, a lot of higher education experts said, we'll see whether this is a trend we have to focus on. Maybe this is a wave we can avoid. But nowadays, I think the message is quite clear. This is transforming higher education. And of course, it goes into our business model, meaning it goes into the core functions of higher education. Take the research function. If digitalization is about the ability to cope with big data, of course this is transforming research. We have enormous possibilities, but also challenges. Science, higher education is based on data. And you know, the whole economy is now based on data. And we are in the middle of a huge resource, data. But we have to work how we can use that more efficient. The University of Bielefeld had its 50-year anniversary recently. And I was there and preparing for that. I had a talk to a colleague from the DAAD, and he's in the council of the board of Google, Technical Board Advisory Board. And he said, oh, you're going to Bielefeld. Niklas Luhmann was there. Don't you know that the data model and data management model Google, Amazon, etc. use is based on the theory of Niklas Luhmann? Because he was able, or he did it, he just did it. He wrote his theories in Graphen. In graphs, I don't know the English word, but suddenly the informatics, the people from informatics could understand what this guy with his societal idea meant. So they started to build a completely new model of how one could use data. And I think in science itself, we are still in front of this big revolution. I mean, the research councils have hordes, masses of precious data, but we don't use them really in a way that one researcher can use in an interdisciplinary approach the data of another one. Usually it's still this USB stick, what we call data management. So 10 USB sticks is data management. So we try to improve that data management. There are big initiatives like the National Infrastructure for Data Sharing. But I think in the core of research, there is a big transformation in front of us. And of course, open research, open access, that's what the European model is about, isn't it? I mean, the Chinese found the way how to cope with data, the US, based on big companies and enterprises. But what is the European model? It can't be only the security of data. This is important, but it's only part of it. How do we learn to share data, to pool data? I have a lot of contacts in Südwestphalia, South Westphalia, with medium-sized companies. Oh, it's so hard, this idea of sharing data. No, these are mine. Why should I share? But that's what the new economy is based on. And sometimes I have the impression, although higher education and science is of course based on data, open data, we still have to elaborate good ways to work better with this precious data. Let's go to teaching. Teaching becomes more visible. This is not so pleasant. In former times, it somehow was nicer. You could go to your seminar, have a nice talk to your students, no colleague would interfere. That's private, I mean, isn't it? Nowadays, teaching gets public. I can compare. I'm visible. Students all over the world, yeah, if you are on that road, can compare. And suddenly I can compare and say, okay, my professor is teaching introduction into macroeconomics, but this other guy from MIT is doing the same, but much more interesting. So there comes more pressure in terms of visibility. In terms of quality, this might be good, but of course we have to be supported in that function. And maybe the tension between research and teaching gets even stronger. I mean, in our big mass systems, there is a huge tension in this unity. Yeah, we always say there is this unity, but of course, and now teaching also gets so much more specialized. In former times, it was already a big challenge to make teaching more international. Now it has also to be international, media-based, professional. That's a big challenge. We don't have the right support structures. And of course, the tension between research and learning and teaching increases. And you already said that. Do we educate for a digital world? How do our curricula look like? What about digital literacy in every discipline? I think there are a lot of programs now starting, but what about digital competencies? And so I think there's a huge challenge content-wise. Do we integrate? Do we prepare our students for this digital environment? How do we do it? How do we get this into our contents? And what about this function of universities to be the site of the Republican discourse? Where are the heavy debates on what digitalization makes, does to our world? If it's a transformative development, then we have to address that as higher education. And I think in the end, we have to concentrate. Mission was the one, but in the teaching and learning, I think the more I think about it, in the end, we have to organize that shift to learning. And this is a major shift. We don't take that serious, but digitalization forces this shift. In former times, Bologna started with that, from teaching to learning. Did anyone take that really serious? No. We don't put the learner in the center and think wherever the learner is, I connect all types of content, all sites, so that the learner is in the center. But I think that that is the challenge. So when we had the occasion to meet the government, that's every 3 or 4 months with one topic, of course. Data is a big one, artificial intelligence, what is the data strategy, what about e-government? But talking about teaching and learning, we decided it's about this shift to learning. If we don't take that shift serious in higher education, we can't use all these new possibilities. There's such former generations would have been absolutely enthusiastic about these possibilities. We now have to organize good learning, to support good learning. So many ways to individualize, to personalize it, to combine different types of media. But do we do that? Is that really at the core of teaching and learning at higher education institutions? I don't think so. Because the first is we think we offer something and we don't think and look what does the learner need. And this is so crucial, because if we don't ask this question first, we will put a lot of old models into new channels. And that's even worse than before, because then they are somehow in a kind of cement of new media. So I only can say we have also new types of, let's say, customer relationships. I mean, the students are co-producers. Hasn't that been the original idea? The Gemeinschaft der Lehrenden und Lernenden? Now you can do it. So we see that. Why is Wikipedia such a threat? Why do many scholars say, oh, if you quote Wikipedia, then I won't give you a positive mark? No, we have to tackle that. We have to discuss what is good, what is bad, how can we improve that? And if we have the students that can compare, of course, they are not only consumers, but they are also consumers, and they can compare. They can have a look. How is this introduction into something delivered somewhere else? And they have, of course, changed and reception habits. If we take that serious, the learner and the center, I have to look, where is he or she? Is she, like 80% of our students, in the job and commuting between private and education and professional life. So I have to bring learning there and not bring the learner into the institution. That's not the appropriate approach. And of course, we have to accompany the learner on his or her learning journey. The European Commission has, I think, starting with Bologna, always underlined lifelong guidance, 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 guidance. And I think that is so important, because if we don't want to lose the learner on this journey, we have to accompany, consult, and support. And I think that's what the students need, and where we have to kind of educate them how they can use. Volker Meyer-Gugel said about this reflective skills in using media. Yes, that's our task. The teachers have completely different roles as well. And we can see some are very good in online teaching, some are very good on-site giving seminars, some are very good in written materials. There are different talents, I would say, and the whole learning process needs them all. But someone has to feel responsible for the architecture of all those different roles. And this part is missing in my eyes, because most of the scholars want to be the content provider. They don't like this idea, I'm the designer or architect of a learning process. This is something they don't feel too comfortable with. Maybe some people from education, they like this idea, but the rest thinks I lose kind of respect if I'm not the one delivering the content. And I think this is a absolutely major challenge. And if we come to the role of politics, I think, of course, higher education in Germany are mostly public organizations. I think Western Europe is the area of the world with the smallest share of private institutions in higher education. So it's a public responsibility. We see it as a public good. I think there's a lot of consensus also on the European level. Yeah, but what does this mean? I mean, of course, something with the financial aspects, but on the other hand, also we need this collaboration with the political level. If the political level is not dealing, we can't just behave as a self-organizing institution. We are very much linked to the politic in this area. And we founded this platform in North Rhine-Westphalia also because we said we all have the same problems with the legal requirements, with the political environment. So please, let's set up a round table where the ministry is also there, and there we can discuss why is the teaching duty designed in a certain manner. So if I do some blended learning, I have a problem. How can I bring that into the requirements? So how is this supported? So of course, I think every one of you knows you need them on the table, and also educational policy has to think, okay, diversity, is that a topic? Is that a goal, a political goal? And then if that is so, will digitalization help me or will it hinder? And I think you have really also from the educational policy goals, screen it and have a look whether this supports the political goals or not. We have, for instance, in Hagen, 12% of our student body has some kind of disabilities and needs special support. So if we look, digitalization can help in some respect. In others, we have to take care that we exclude not in a new way. So I think with all those already reached goals, we have to look, is there a fallback? For instance, what about the participation of women in digitalization? Is this something that will be fostered, developed, or not? But we have to have a look. It's not self-understanding that this will help in reaching the goals. And of course, we need the political environment to give us the the necessary frameworks. And most of the frameworks of German higher education institutions is bound. The German university ist eine Präsenzinstitution. So it's a shift. Yeah, I think who said there's a shift in the mindset that is necessary. And if you take that serious, then you have to screen a lot of these contextual and legal issues. That's a hard way. We are in the middle of such discussions, but it's a hard way. Yeah, I think nowadays you only survive as a knot in a network, or you won't survive. So the future is collaboration, as you already said. So you have to think, what is your part in this network? What is your specialty? And of course, you have to organize permeability between educational sectors. If we put the learner in the center, the learner is not interested in these columns of the German education system. This is vocational, this is academic, this is this, with all the differentiated institutionalizations. No, we have to think that together. The lifespan, so age was one of the issues, but also where you are moving. Are you only in an educational environment? Are you in a working environment? So we have to assure this permeability, and I think quality assurance would help. If we develop good methods of quality assurance, show me your content, I make my quality assurance, my institution has a special view what we think quality is. And then I say, yes, I like your content. I will make it part of my institution. This should be the future. We can't, and I think that's at least in North Rhine-Westphalia, Gudrun Oevel is here, I see with a certain optimism that people start talking about sharing contents. Yes. That's the way to do it. And then we can think also beyond the borders. We are talking about that. In Germany, it's already a border between what is happening within a company and within higher education. So that would be already revolution if we develop quality assurance to these different worlds. Quality assurance is a way to build trust. Yeah, and then I can say, okay, permeability, networks, collaboration via quality assurance. And that was the beginning of the European University. They were certifying institutions. So let's do that again in a modern way so that we can combine these worlds. And of course, it's a long journey. If you deal with digitalization, it's usually the adult learners and the lifelong learners and those in the professional studies who are most eager, because they see the advantage. And most of the universities and higher education institutions made in those areas their first experiences with digitalization. So that can help to reach that goal. Last. So I think this seeing oneself as a not in a bigger network and think of this, start with a mission. What is my special place in that network? Of course, a higher education institution has a lot to do about reflection of all this. This is a special role in the society, but it's connected. It must be connected, either connected or in splendid isolation, and this is not a good future if we choose the road of splendid isolation. And you need somehow to manage a partner network. And this is difficult for higher education institutions because you need that for all the functions. You need to collaborate in research. We have learned that. In teaching, it's getting already a bit complicated. And in administration, we are not used to that. So that's where I'm very happy. For instance, North Rhine-Westphalia, they were so proud having freedom, law of autonomy of universities in the beginning of the 2000s. And then the first interpretation of this freedom was, let's have every university a separate campus management system. Then we are really autonomous. And so they paid a lot of money, nerves, and so on. And now 10 years later, they say, shouldn't we collaborate in that? Maybe just 1 or 2 campus management systems, and the IT companies are not then in such a powerful situation. So I think collaboration is the future of that. Last, and that's so, I think that's really awesome for every institution. You have to live what you preach. So you have to do it in your own institution. That's meant with kind of operative excellence. This is the smaller digitization. But being in a public German university, we know this is not a small goal. We started our counseling with the government with the topic of e-government. We said, sorry, if we don't start with e-government, the rest makes no sense. And in universities or higher education institution, I would say, if we don't start with digitalization of our services, it won't be too convincing, because the students and partners, they are all around. They are used to certain standards. And then they come to us, it's not possible to deliver just a certificate or, I mean, smaller issues, you all know. So we really, really have to take that serious. And then comes to the last, how bring we the competent administrations? This is a big challenge. And so we really have to put heavy weight on creating a learning environment for our own staff. And of course, teachers as well, but they are doing it. I would concentrate with the administration, because there's such a combination of fear and resistance and not knowing what is this, that I would say I would start there and say, let's create an environment where we can tackle with these issues so that we get the impression we can cope with that. And maybe life is even better after that. So let us use the transformative energy of digitalization as a driving force for improving higher education. And as I know, many of you are from the teaching and learning area, so please, let's use that talking about good learning instead of technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this great overview and for this introduction to the theme of the conference. As a moderator, I have the opportunity and the privilege to ask a very first question before you will get the opportunity to do so as well. You can prepare your questions if you haven't done so yet. Maybe just one example from the consequences digitalization has had on your institution that you are heading now. Could you provide us with how did your business model, for instance, change because of digitalization?
We have 3 columns, pillars. So we have written materials, we have online campus, and we have a physical venue where to meet. And I think we all got to know much more that we have to combine these 3 pillars much better. And written material, students love that, that's okay, but that can be done also in, so on a way it was not a change of the model, but improvement in terms of more media for different, so you have to think what kind of media for what purpose. Self-study written materials are wonderful, collaborative, working, you need an environment like platforms. And of course, then it's nice to meet at a venue like this. So we have also study centers all over.
Thank you. Now I gave you enough opportunity to think about a question. What would you like to ask Professor Pellet? Do I see a first hand? Yes, I do. Do I see a microphone? Not yet. Oh, there it is.
Marco Winska, Hochschule Bonn-Rhein-Sieg. What do you think about the speed of development? Are universities really prepared for that? I mean, we have players like Coursera on the market who are offering already courses, and basically we're still discussing whether we use Moodle or Ilias, what shall we do? So I feel we're lacking behind.
Yes, we are. But I think I'm always optimistic. I always see the glass is half full. And there I see a speeding up awareness that this is the case. So some 2 or 3 years ago, there was not this awareness that we really have to cope with that. And there's surely a difference. And I think the biggest challenge will be this link between employers and students not needing the institution anymore. And I think we have to think, and this is always a starting point for thinking. Yeah, what are we offering? Is it just the content or is it something else? You remember MIT, the first offering open educational resource, and everybody said, why are they doing this? Yes, because it's not the essential. Still enough students there.
Yes, further questions? Yes, Florian.
Thanks a lot for the very engaged talk you just gave. I remember like 2 key things you said, like you have to live what you preach and you have to put like the learner into the focus. I would be really interested what you think where we stand regarding putting the learner into the focus within your institution and also within the networks that you work with. Because what I see also looking around here, I think it's a great community that comes together and we will have a great workshop with learners as innovators later on. Still, we haven't managed to do that sufficiently. So what do you think, where do we stand regarding that and what can we do to make that even better happen?
I think at the very beginning, I don't see that this is taken serious by most of the higher education institutions because it's such a shift. Yeah, this is the revolutionary part of it. But I stress that so because this is the challenge. The one who will manage to do that don't have to worry about their future. And so on a way, I think this will be also rewarded if I'm, as a learner, feeling I'm put in the middle of all that. And if the thinking is driven from that starting point, you come to completely different institutional answers. But it's a major shift, and because all the structures, all the incentives, all the socialization is different. That's why I would always say this is really the hard stuff. Yeah, if you do it as an institution, I think many have testing grounds where they do it. I was in the scientific board of this competition Bund Länder Aufstieg durch Bildung, yeah, offene Hochschulen. So many higher education institutions started in that project, in that area. Oh, I want to address new target groups. So if you really want to address new target groups, I think Berlin universities are not thinking about that, for instance. Yeah. So why should they? But those who start to think, I want to address and get new target group, suddenly, yeah, thinking starts differently. And there I see a lot of interesting starting points, models, and we need to have, that's why I'm so keen on linking those communities, because in the end, it's so hard whether you make a good international program or a good digital or a good lifelong learning. Please let's share the experiences, because it's always the same, institutional resistance you have to conquer. But there are good examples, but I wouldn't say that this is mainstream.
So certain institutions need to digitalize faster than others, depending on where they are. You said that
yes.
Berlin University is probably a bit slower because
yes.
the demand.
I mean, when do you change? We don't like to change. There's an old proverb in change management that says, you change when the fear, what happens if you not change, is bigger than the fear of change. So this is not very romantic. this is not very nice, but I think it's quite realistic. So if I'm somewhere in the outskirts and feeling that the student's body is changing or not coming, I suddenly start to think about international students, about female students, about digitalization. So a lot of ideas start if you feel this pressure.
Further questions? Yes, the lady in the third row.
Okay. Silja Kröscher, Beuth University of Applied Sciences here in Berlin, Institute of Distance Learning. I think digitalization is, of course, important for the learners, but also for the employees working in the institutions. So my question is, how digital is the work environment in Hagen? Or to say, could I work from Berlin for the Fernuniversität Hagen?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, this depends on, for instance, if you do if you're there as a researcher, I always say, hey, you have also to create an atmosphere where people are working together. Of course, you can do a lot online, and this is done. I mean, look how scholars in higher education are working. They're not spending all the time side by side. So that's an international global feature of higher educations are global institutions. But coming to the study model, I think that's the more interesting thing that I think we have learners that come back to learning after some years. And first they're a bit hesitating. What does this mean? Do I have now a learning platform and so on? But after some time, they realize that these experiences help a lot for their working environment. And it's a bit more relaxed to have this in a test use as a learner and not in the real use testing in the workplace. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question in the front. Gentleman in the front. Further question? Okay.
Thorsten Heimann from the University of Bayreuth. The question relates to lifelong learning. So we are currently working on digital strategies for universities, of course, and we are addressing mainly the presence of students on the campus. And if we're talking about digitalization, that means we're talking about digitization of lecture halls, creating a better experience for students on the campus. If I think of lifelong learning, then I'm thinking of 10 years later, 20 years later. Our former students have moved somewhere else. We would need to provide distance learning, which means different technologies, different didactics, different students, but still the same teachers and the same lecturers. The question is, do we need 2 digital strategies or do we need 1? Is this the same?
Very good. I think that's exactly what I meant with mission and strategy. You really have to think what for. And the institution, I think, also each institution can develop a different strategy for lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is also not the same for every institution. So you have to think, which are my target groups, where we are good at, whom do we want to address in the future? And first answer those questions and then think whether you need a second type of scholar or who is, I mean, if you really dive into lifelong learners, you need different didactics and not only different technology, as you said. So I think that's, I'm very much with you that you first have to think, what is my goal objective in that? Otherwise, it makes no sense for the institution because it will be a long and expensive journey.
Thank you. Yes, the lady at the staircase in the back.
Thank you very much, Tina Ladwig, Hamburg Open Online University. You were talking about cooperation. And if I'm looking at your state, there are 42 higher education institutions. Some have sometimes more to give than others. So what do you think is a good incentive in order to really cooperate in between all those higher education institutions?
Yeah. I would say money is always a good incentive. And that helped also in North Rhine-Westphalia, because that was clever from the political area. They said, if you, Platform of 42, manage to give us, Ministry for Education, a joint mission paper, what are the shared priorities for teaching, administration, and so on. If we get that in a readable version, we can go to the finance ministry and say, that's what all the higher education institutions want. And it worked. We got via this way 50 million in addition. I mean, with 50 million, we won a year and permanent. That was super good, because it was not only project, but it was real money in the households. Of course, it's not enough for digitalization of 42 institutions, but it was an incentive. And now starts a whole strategy for interesting projects, and they always have to be shared ones. If not at least a big consortium of universities or higher education or Fachhochschule says, we like that, and that's our priority, they won't get money. So in a way, good old money helps with collaboration.
Thank you. I have time for 2 or 3 more questions. So I have in the middle, 3rd, 4th row, a question. Microphone, please. 2nd, okay.
Thank you. Petju Budakov, Tekra Hochschule für Medien, Berlin, and a former DAAD scholar. So my question is, first of all, thank you very much for this really very inspiring and great talk. But the question is, have you ever developed certain quality standards for blended learning that you could track and monitor the students' engagement into the blended learning? Thank you.
Yeah, lieber gleich.
Very important question. I think, learning analytics, that would be such a chance of improving the learning process. But I think we still are coping how we can do that. Yeah, data security, personal rights, and so on. That's a big issue. But I think that's why I said, if we take learning serious, to give you an example, Hagen has a lot of students, and I know that learning is best if you individualize or personalize. I can't do that with 86 professors and 76,000 students. Even if I have 500 different, I can't think about it. But now, if I start thinking machine learning, support system, recommender systems, artificial intelligence, if I can use that to individualize learning, perfect. I mean, so I think there's a big quality step in that if we do it in a proper way. Yeah.
Okay, last question I had over here.
Yeah. Hannes Brunner, Weisensee Kunsthochschule. Thank you very much for all this talk. And what concerns me most with the digitization is rather the implementation of the singularity effect and through this algorithmacy, what you called there. And I do realize working with students and on their keenness of research or doing things, but not having a totally different concentration span that I use, so I have no comparison there. And I know that, for instance, the touchscreen effect as the physical body starts to be more a real analytical, an important issue, how actually it gets implemented in the whole learning effects or lifelong learning.
Yes, I think you're perfectly right. And there's no development only with chances, also with risks. I mean, that's why it's so important to accompany this journey with research and to look. I mean, as it is with internationalization, I think it would be so interesting to get more to know what are the intercultural components of learning. Yeah, we just know too little about that. And in that, I think we do, for instance, now e-assessments in the Faculty for Psychology, and we combine those who do e-assessments, those who do the proper old way of written. So what are the effects? And I think we need a lot more of accompanying research, but that should be really connected to those who are doing it. So we sometimes tend to have those who are just doing and those who are just thinking. And my vision is always, it would be super to bring them together.
Thank you very much. That was very, very insightful. And maybe before we go to the next point in the agenda, a short summary, what I take with me from your presentation. First of all, be inclusive, don't lose the rest. I think that's a very important message. Secondly, don't try one approach that doesn't fit, but try to differentiate your approaches. And thirdly, collaborate. And I think that's something you can explicitly do well at a university conference and in a context. And the whole aspect of collaboration is, of course, something we will always have in the back of our minds. So, Professor Pellet, thank you very much for joining us here today. And yeah, a warm round of applause. Now we have on our agenda a next point, and I'm very happy that Mr. Michael Meister, from the Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Education and Research, made it in time to this appointment and to this conference. He will be delivering a short welcome message as well, and then we will proceed with delivering the certificates for the peer-to-peer counseling. Now, Michael Meister is the Parliamentary State Secretary since 2018, March 2018. Before that, he was also Parliamentary State Secretary in the Ministry of Finance. He's a mathematician by training, and he has been a member of the German Bundestag, our federal parliament, since 1994. So a very experienced politician, and I'm very happy that you're here. Please join us on stage for your welcome remarks.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rüland, Dr. Meyer-Gunkel, Professor Pellet. Since 2002, more of the world's data has been stored digitally than in analog form. As of 2009, more things or objects are connected to the internet than people. And we live in a time of big data, in a time of digital transformation of the economy, the society, and of science and education. Higher education is also undergoing this transformation process. You probably notice fairly frequently that this process is not as fast and not as smooth as would be needed for the universities to act as a pace setters of digitalization of science and society. Hochschulforum Digitalisierung, the German Higher Education Forum on Digitalization, or HFD, and the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, are pace setters within the German higher education system. They are driving developments in their respective areas and activities. I am therefore delighted that Hochschulforum Digitalisierung has organized its strategy conference together with the German Academic Exchange Service this year. The title of this conference, Strategies Beyond Borders, Transforming Higher Education in a Digital Age, indicates the importance of strategies for shaping digital change in higher education. I welcome the fact that the conference will not only discuss the need for higher education strategies, but also experiences with using strategies. Along with Hochschulforum Digitalisierung. My special thanks go to the state of Baden-Württemberg and, of course, the participating higher education institutions. You have all recognized and made use of the potential of peer-to-peer consultation on digital change in higher education institutions. The current annual report of the German Commission of Experts for Research and Innovation found that Germany's higher education institutions do recognize the challenges of digitalization. But at the same time, most of them still have a lot of work to do in order to deal with these challenges. This applies especially to how they deal with digitalization strategically. The BMBF supports the higher education institutions in shaping digital change and pursues three guiding aims. At first, to improve the quality of higher education. Second, to improve the capability of the higher education system. And third, to promote the internationalization of higher education institutions. In order to achieve these goals, the BMBF has introduced a wide range of measures to help the higher education institutions to shape their future. With a Quality Pact for Teaching in Higher Education, the BMBF has provided an important stimulus for change in higher education towards a better quality of teaching and for digitally supported teaching and studying. Well over half of the founded schemes implemented measures related to these goals. In particular, they involve assessment and exams, e-learning and blended learning, as well as the organization of teaching and learning. The funding provided by the BMBF for research into digital higher education have enjoyed ever-increasing demand since our first call for proposals in 2016. The funding is aimed at promoting innovative digital teaching and learning formats and the structural conditions for this to be successful, and thus creates the necessary knowledge for higher education institutions to design formats. We must make the knowledge gained widely available so that all higher education institutions can benefit. We are also currently devoting great efforts to establishing the National Research Data Infrastructure, the NFDI, and strengthening the preconditions for a better quality of higher education. We are ensuring that we leverage the treasure trove of research data and secure it on a lasting basis, while also rendering it accessible. As such, we are furthering the digitalization of science and raising the quality of higher education. Consortia that are open in terms of methods and disciplines will bring together existing data and collections and services and establish common and cross-cutting solutions and standards for the management of research data in Germany. I am delighted that higher education institutions already take up the biggest share of the first round of applications for consortia in the National Research Data Infrastructure. The federal government and Germany's Länder, its states, are making an important contribution towards increasing the performance capability of the higher education system with a future contract for strengthening studying and teaching in higher education. When it comes in effect in 2021, it will be concerned with improving the quality of study and teaching right across the higher education landscape. On top of the basic financing of higher education institutions that is provided by the Länder, we have agreed that the federal government and the Länder will make available equal amounts of funds for the future contract. This means that around 3.8 billion euros until 2023 and 4.1 billion euros as of 2024 will be available each year to enhance studying and teaching in higher education. In this way, we are providing universities with a long-term planning certainty, as well as a basis for greater numbers of permanent contracts. The federal government and the Länder see this is an essential factor for improving the quality of studying and teaching. Further measures to improve quality are possible. Before the start of the future contract, each land will set out in a declaration of commitments what strategic approaches and priorities it will pursue in deploying the funds. Digital learning programs are available everywhere. This has consequences for everyday life at higher education institutions. Students with diverse previous knowledge are making into universities, and students are beginning to organize their own individual learning paths. The rising number and the diversity of the digital programs that are available mean that the quality assurance requirements of higher education institutions are also increasing. The same applies in the international context. The call for proposals of the German Academic Exchange Service under its new International Mobility and Cooperation through Digitalization program was announced a year ago. It sent an important signal and reinforces the internationalization of higher education institutions. Digital teaching and learning formats will be an integral part of the transnational study programs under this funding program. It will support teaching and administrative staff and students in higher education by providing them with the skills needed to use digital tools and processes. The deadline for detailed proposals was 2 weeks ago, and I am looking forward to finding out which innovative ideas will be implemented. The digital transformation of our entire society poses a highly complex challenge. We don't simply want this change to happen to us. We want actively shape this change ourselves. The goal of shaping this transformation is of major importance to the BMBF. It goes far beyond the measures aimed at higher education teaching. This change aims at better administration services for students and higher education institutions. This is made especially clear by the activities of the federal government and the Länder in adopting the Online Access Act and implementing the EU's Single Digital Gateway regulation. These laws oblige the federal government, the Länder, and the local authorities to offer the administrative service via citizen-oriented website portals available throughout Europe by the end of 2022. This includes, for example, the processing and international change of university place. This obligation, therefore, explicitly includes public higher education institutions and their administrations. The Federal Ministry of Education and Research has assumed the lead in the field of education together with the state of Saxony-Anhalt. For a pilot project, we have chosen the application process for the financial assistance for students under what is known as the BAföG law. In a digitalization lab, a digital target vision for the standardized BAföG online application for the whole Germany has been developed. Now, it is a matter of putting this into administrative practice. Others can make use of the work of the BAföG Digitalization Lab. That is a point of a pilot project like this. We have to take further. This project takes an example of digital credentials, that is to say, the secure management of verifiable education certificates under the control of the user. These certificates include school, vocational training, and university qualifications, as well as continuing education certificates and employment references. Just think what this means for the process of changing universities or jobs. There will be no need for further verification or qualifications and references. The value of digital certificates becomes even clearer if we consider this in the context of structural change towards digital learning and teaching. It is clear that the digitalization of higher education institutions and the development of interoperable digital services for the support of teaching and research need our support. The BMBF is committed to digitalization that serves the people. In the next 3 years, we will be investing 53 million euros in our flagship initiative, Secure Digital Education Areas. In this way, we are improving education with innovative digital solutions right across the whole spectrum of education. Under this flagship initiative, we want to achieve secure online management of digital education data on a voluntary basis. Learner-oriented ease of use, data security, and the authenticity in terms of protection against forgery should figure just as prominently as interoperability between institutions that issue or store digital credentials at the request of the holders. Digitalization in higher education systems gives us possibility to overcome rigid dividing lines between higher education institutions and between higher education institution administrations, as well as between students and lecturers, between teaching and research, and also between the different higher education systems. This process will overcome these dividing lines, are complex, and it will take time. You have reliable partner in our ministry to support you in shaping this process. I call on you to make good use of the coming 2 days to network, exchange experience, and to develop new ideas on this purpose. Thank you very much. And Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to hand out now the certificates. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your speech. Now we will proceed with the certificates for the peer-to-peer consulting program that the Hochschulforum Digitalisierung offers. We have actually 2 programs. One is federally funded, one is state funded by the state of Baden-Württemberg. We will do these certificate processes in the separate program. So we will start with the BMBF funded certificates or participants. These are 6 in total. I would like to ask upon calling the name of the participant and the institution, to come to the stage to receive the certificate, and then please wait behind the stage so that in the end we can come back on stage for a family picture. All right, so let's start with the BMBF funded program. I would like to call upon Susan Hippler from the Bauhaus-Universität Weimar to join us on stage. Next is Professor Dr. Olga Burkova from the University of Applied Sciences in Hamburg. Then I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Jens Weiss from the Hochschule Harz. No, I'm Jennifer Hoffmann from die Weißensee Kunsthochschule Berlin.
Professor Brunner.
Und Professor Brunner. Next in line is Professor Dr. Thorsten Eimann. He's from the University of Bayreuth. And finally, for this program, Professor Dr. Kerstin Kriegelstein from the University of Konstanz. And in addition, Anke Waldau. Welcome. Okay, now a family picture, please. Mr. Meister in the center, and then the participants gather around. Okay, thank you very much. A round of applause. But it's not over yet. Mr. Meister, we will ask you to deliver also the certificates for the participants of the state of Baden-Württemberg, if that's okay. We don't have a representative from the state ministry. I think they allow. So we have Professor Dr. Peter Veterlein from the Duale Hochschule Baden-Württemberg. Professor Dr. Clemens Möller from the Hochschule Albstadt-Sigmaringen. Welcome. Dr. Michael Schäfer von der Pädagogischen Hochschule Weingarten. And the final certificate goes to, oh, no. Please come back and take another picture. And the final certificate goes to Melanie Klinger from the University of Mannheim. By now we all know the procedure, so please come in front and Mr. Meister in the middle. And then we take a last picture with the 4 participants. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye. Okay, we're rapidly approaching lunchtime, but not yet. The organizers of this meeting asked me to also provide some opportunity to get to know each other and to loosen up a little. I've been sitting and listening to all these interesting conversations and presentations, but maybe it's not so good for your health. So there's one exercise the organizers would like you to do. I'm not sure whether you are all willing to do that. I might also not have the right outfit to do that, but as you can see, next slide, please, is the little man. I don't have the outfit, but you can see from the pictures, we don't have to go jumping up and down, but if you would like to get up and raise your arms a little bit, stretch your legs a little bit, I'm sure your body will appreciate. It's a long day, as I said in the beginning, and it's always good to get up. Right. I won't let you go into your lunch break yet. I would like you to get to know your neighbor a little bit so that hopefully you sit down strategically.